Where the Mind is Without Fear, poem number 35 in the anthology Gitanjali, and of course, written by Rabindranath Tagore. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. A very famous poem, which was originally composed in Bengali, and it was um, it was composed under the title Pratna, which means prayer. Later on, Rabindranath Tagore himself, he translated this Bengali poem into English, and this translation appeared as poem 35 in his Nobel-winning anthology Gitanjali. So we must remember that when this poem was written, India was under the British rule. And if there was one thing that the people of India were eagerly waiting for, it was to get their freedom from the British rule. And that's the time Rabindranath Tagore wrote this poem. And this poem is written in the form of a prayer to God, a prayer that Rabindranath Tagore writes to God the Almighty for true freedom in his country. And through this poem, Rabindranath Tagore tells us, the readers, what he thinks of freedom. What is the definition of freedom? When is a country truly free? So we're going to read through these lines. We're going to understand these lines one by one. So he says, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. So in the very first line, Rabindranath Tagore, he prays to God that his countrymen, that Indians should be free from any fear of the British rule or any kind of oppression. They should be fearless. He also wishes that every Indian has his head held high, which means has dignity, has self respect, should have a sense of self respect and self dignity. When knowledge is free, he says that he dreams of a nation where knowledge would be free. Knowledge is, of course, education. It should not only be meant for the rich people. In those times when Rabindranath Tagore wrote this poem, education could only be afforded by the rich people, by the upper class people. So he wanted knowledge to be available, education to be available even to the lower classes, even to the poor people. But he could also have meant something else, that knowledge is free, that you get knowledge freely, probably from nature and not just from books and textbooks and mugging up things, conning up things, but by learning, you know, from your surroundings, and not just from your textbooks, not just limited to bookish knowledge, but more than that, more out of your books. Knowledge should be free and not limited to just one textbook. Where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. So he talks about unity here, not only the unity of the Indians, of his own countrymen, but also of the entire world. He doesn't want the world to be broken up into fragments. He doesn't want people to be divided into little groups. All these groups divided by what? Divided by these walls, domestic walls, within your own people, not international walls, but domestic walls, which means that these walls we create amongst ourselves, amongst our own people, walls of caste, of creed, walls of color, walls of religion, walls of superstition. These are the domestic walls he's talking about. And he says they're narrow. It's a little it's an optimistic picture that he gives us. These walls are not really wide walls, walls which we cannot break. They're narrow walls. We can break them down and be united. Where words come out from the depth of truth, he wants his countrymen to be truthful. All the words that come out from their mouth should come out in truthfulness. And also, words not based on hypocrisy, but words that are truly meant and not just superficial. Words that come out from your heart. If you say something to someone, mean it. Don't just say it because you want a favor. Where tireless striving stretches his arms towards perfection. He wants his countrymen to work hard and keep working hard, tireless, without getting tired. Keep working hard, keep striving for perfection, to be perfect, to be the best. Keep striving and don't be tired by working. All right. Don't be lazy. Don't keep ignoring your work. Keep working. Keep moving towards being better and better and better every day. Where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way. Clear stream of reason, your logic, your understanding. He hopes that his countrymen retain their logic, that they keep thinking, that they are not misled by other people who can influence people's thoughts with their words. He wants people to keep thinking, to use their logic. And he prays that our logic and understanding is not lost in a dreary desert that is in superstitions or in crafty words used by politicians or other people or other influential people who try to influence us. Simple people with their words, with their tricks, with their promises. He wants us to keep thinking, all right, and not lose our reasoning when we find ourselves in a dreary desert sand of dead habits. Dead habits, I hear what mean, like dead habit is superstition, like things, traditions, dead traditions, which which really don't contribute to our well-being. All right. So we have to keep thinking. We have to keep thinking about what we have done in the past and what we need to do in the future, and not just carry on with that tradition, with all those dead habits of the past. We have to keep thinking. And then he goes on to say, where the mind is led forward by thee, that is by God, he wants God to lead our minds forward. All right. He wants his countrymen, he wants Indians to keep progressing. Keep progressing. How? Into ever widening thought and action. So your thoughts and actions should be wide. What he means to say is an ever widening. That is, you keep making space, you keep widening your thinking. All right. You just keep thinking about the changes that are taking place around you and keep understanding things. Give space for change, for new thoughts and ideas. Don't just stick to your own thoughts and ideas and dead habits of the past. Keep widening your horizons, keep widening your thoughts and your actions. All right. And then he says, in other words, what he wants to say, he wants his countrymen to be broad minded and not narrow minded. All right. And then he says, into that heaven of freedom, he says, I want my country to achieve that state of freedom. He says, let my country, my Father God, let my country awake into that heaven of freedom. When a country is free, not only politically, but is also free from the chains of, chains of prejudice, is free from the chains of superstition, is free from the chains of lies, then a country is truly free. He wants the Indians to be not only politically free, that is, free from the British rule, but he says what is more important is to understand that you are only free when you are fearless, when you are self dignified, you have self respect, when you're knowledgeable, when you're truthful, when you're hardworking, and when you are broad minded. Only then can you enjoy freedom. Only then can you reach that heaven of freedom.